Hey everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome back to Bozmos2, where we are playing Chaco. This is turn 74, the final turn. Let's jump into things. Okay, so we've got 3 battles here. None of the rest of the stuff really matters, so we'll just go ahead and watch through them, probably in pretty excruciating detail for the 4A and the Atlantis one, not for the Kangobia one. It's raid. But yeah, we'll go through it and see how we did. Talk about stuff, and then probably talk a little bit about Chaco and how the game went. Little bits and pieces from there. So, let's jump in, shall we? We'll do the Kangobia Fight, since that's, again, just a raid. We just picked a random dangerous-looking target to go at. And it's just a bunch of Kangobs. I wish I had, like, a running tally of how many of these guys I killed this freaking game. Like, there's so many of them. Surprising at them actually getting hits through. Yes. Oh, he's doing bonds of fire. That's what's triggering. I was gonna say, I can't imagine those guys actually really doing that much damage to me. Very nice. Easy victory. 62 units killed. Did we get a special off of that or anything like that? Okay, so cool. Let's watch. Well, fuck it. We'll go in order. We'll do Atlantis first. So, the big battle with Atlantis in Madria. Oofa doofa. All right, so this is what we are up against. This is what we have brought. Unfortunately, significantly smaller compared to what we have over in the Old Man 4A Flagra Fight, right? We just didn't have as many units to use here. So we've got a small group of Katsina warriors. We've got some Katsina ogres. We've got a couple of bears, sacred bears, and then we've got, you know, a healthy dose of Chacoan armored warriors, some Chacoan elites. Some archers, and a decent-sized mage corps. I say decent-sized mage corps. There's a bunch of star priests here. The rest of the stuff we don't really have a whole lot of. We've got a couple of sorceresses, and we've got a couple of wuyas. We'll see how that all goes through. What we got on the other side? We've got a whole bunch of war shamblers, which are kind of expected. We've got a lot of these guys, returned shamblers, and these, I don't know if we've gone over them a whole bunch, but these guys are sick nasty. I think they are, I don't think they exist in the regular game. I don't think they are vanilla. I think they are one of Atlantis's EE additions. If I can verify real quick. So we got return shamblers. No. Yeah, those are, it looks like they are a DE edition. And these guys are sick. Very high HP. 33 base. They are enlarged. Part of his bless. So, that's cool. Which makes them pretty deadly. It does make them, it takes them from being size 3, right? Which means they can be 2 to a square. So it decreases their attack density, which is not great, right? But it also, you know, means you have a thicker line to hold, and these guys hold a line pretty freaking well. The bless here isn't anything crazy, but they do have undead regeneration, and lo and behold, these guys are undead, so that's going to be kind of rough to deal with. They come with a built-in chill aura. They have built-in poison barbs, which is pretty rough. And then aside from the shock resistance bless, they also come with cold resistance and pierce resistance. So these guys are, I mean, as undead units, right? These and poison resistance. These guys are pretty strong. They're very good combat stats across the board, generally speaking. And this coral glaive is nothing to sniff at. Got a lot of them. There's a lot of returned shamblers here. A little bit of long dead mixed into the group. Got a little bit of kind of lizard warriors mixed in here or there. And then he's got some of these other ones. So he's got the War Shamblers, he's got the Returned Shamblers, and then he's got these guys also mixed in, these Returned Pillars. And they are, I think, basically just stronger Shamblers, kinda, semi-sorta. Yeah, they have more HP, they have better protection, right? The Returned Shamblers have 17 base protection, the Returned Pillars have 21. And other than that, everything is mostly the same. Although the Returned Pillars are standard bearers, so they have very high morale. Though, as undead units, right, they would... I guess they're both standard bearers, whatever. As undead units, they don't have mindless morale. They are breakable, so there's that. But yeah, these Returned Pillars are basically just better versions of the Returned Shamblers. And that's what most of this army is Returned Shamblers and Returned Pillars. There's a couple of, like I said, War Shamblers mixed in. And he's got a couple of other miscellaneous units like Ether Warriors and things like that. But really good, really good solid units. To the point to where even if we had a bunch more Ketsina Warriors, or a bunch more, like, Ketsina Ogres, we're not necessarily, like... I don't know that we match up better than them. Which is kind of... This is going to be... You'll hear this several times from me later on with my feelings on Chaco. But I just feel like there's not enough efficiency for Chaco to compete in... And again, my opinion with a grain of salt, I'm not an expert player. But like when you can run up on things like this is something that Atlantis has been able to amass pretty much anywhere. This isn't just like this is his singular pile of sacred, summoned sacreds. No, that's all over his empire. Whereas these Ketsina Warriors we can only get at our capital, and the Ketsina Ogres, while we can get anywhere, right, they're 5 a pop, 1 at a time. So they're horribly inefficient to summon. Anyways, let's just kind of see how things roll. He has an automatic spell going off. Not sure what it is. But we're just going to watch this a couple times through. We got communions going up on both sides. We've done our army of lead, which is good. He's got a fog warriors that comes out on his side, and this is gonna be kind of not necessarily what I was afraid of, but this is definitely a potential issue that we face. Wailing Winds, followed by Blood Rain. So, and Acid Storm. So we knew Acid Storm was going to be a problem. That was something that I was definitely very concerned about. But with Army of Lead, Acid Storm is less of a concern, especially if we get off something like Mass Regeneration or something like that. It's still dangerous, but it's not as dangerous, right? But Wailing Winds and Blood Rain, if we take a quick look, we have 11 morale on our Chacoan Star Priests. 6 morale on our Silver Adept, right? So this is going to go south pretty quick, I get the feeling. Light in the Northern Star goes up, Relief goes up, Natural Storm goes up, more Light in the Northern Star on his side, Astral Tempest on his side, Rigor Mortis from his side, which, again, going to be another big fucking thing. He's got a lot of undead between his returned Shamblers and his returned Pillars. They're all undead. So Rigor Mortis is really going to screw me up. Barely do anything to him. There's an Earthquake that comes out. Foul Vapors comes out from us, but we've seen that's not really going to do anything to him with all of the undead that he has. And he also throws in a Bloodletting. So in a very rapid space, right, he gets Wailing Winds up, he gets Blood Rain up, and then he triggers a bunch of damage basically across the board between Acid Storm, Earthquake, and Bloodletting. And there's another Earthquake. So yeah, this goes very poorly. Add in the mass flight that he has, which we were protected from mass flight until we lost our storm. That guy. That's neat. Avatar of Death. Personification of death itself. Very cool. Doofa doofa. I hate it when I do big battles like this and the colors are too similar. Like, makes it a pain in the ass to see who's doing what. So we've just got little pockets of resistance here, right? That he's killing off at this point. We're super dead though. Now it's just a matter of seeing how much damage did we do. Unless, you know, yeah, these guys have broken as well, right? I was gonna say, unless maybe one of our Wuyas decides that he wants to stick around for all of eternity and do the whole super combatant thing, but that does not seem to be the case. None of these Wuyas didn't exactly have, like, they didn't have gear for this, again. It's been hard to gear against Atlantis, period. All the crush damage. I was really expecting more water elementals, you know, that type of thing. But he has such good sacreds here. These coral glaives are... the coral glaives and the... what are these things? The basalt spears are really, really strong. Let's speed up. See how long it takes them to kill these Wuyas. Not very long, it seems. Although they're fighting, they're trying to resist. I was gonna say actually, but no. Okay, there we go. Our Wuyas put up a little bit of a resistance before they die, and then that is that. How much damage did we do? Not much. Unfortunately, not very much at all. We lost. We were pretty outgunned here. We had over 100 less. But I think even in the situation of, you know, let's say, for example, the 100 that we were able to bring, let's say that was, you know, 50 Katsina warriors, another 20 Katsina ogres, and you know, 30 bears, right? Possible. Given another couple turns, we could potentially do something that probably less Katsina warriors and more bears. But even considering adding in that much, because we were very light on the amount of infantry that we had here, comparatively, right? Even if we had more infantry there, I don't think we necessarily win this one. I really do feel like this one we lose pretty hard because we're outmatched as far as research goes. If we take a look at all of the things that he put up, really the only big battlefield spell that we were able to get off was Army of Lead, right? So we have our Army of Lead, and then we have our, you know, yeah, actually, we don't even have mass regeneration or anything like that. So I don't think we win very well. He has a Army of Lead or Gold, one or the other, right? Looks like Army of Lead up. He has a Generation up. We have to check someone else real quick. Yeah, he has a mass regeneration or something along those lines up. He has Fog Warriors up. Right, like, he just has more globals going, or more battlefield buffs at this point going. Plus things like Wailing Winds, Acid Storm, Blood Rain. Really, even ignoring all the other things, we lose pretty much right here off of Wailing Winds and Blood Rain, because you can just see the battle has barely even started, and we've already lost 3 sorceresses here, right? Lost a Chacon Star Priest. We lose a Bao Banshee, 2 more Chacon Star Priests, a Monketsina, another Chacon Star Priest, a Chacon Sun Priest. We lose a Jade Sorceress, right? Before the first earthquake even hits, or as the first earthquake hits, we get a lot of routes. Creeping Doom's pretty good. So I think in this particular instance, we were gonna lose to Wailing Winds and Blood Rain pretty much regardless. I don't think we have a good. It's one of those scenarios of like, if you just look at the units involved, our units are relatively low morale. If you take things like Chacon Star Priests and things like that, very low morale. We're definitely gonna route right to things like Wailing Winds or Blood Rain. So we lose off that, and even if we didn't have the Wailing Winds Blood Rain going on, we would probably lose to not even probably, we would definitely lose to the superior firepower that Atlantis was able to bring. And it's basically because of 2 things. One thing is the dominant factor. That's like 80% of this is just Atlantis had more resources and more research, really, is the big thing. Like, way more research than I did. So we were just outgunned in that manner, both numerically and via research, right? Always going to be a problem for us at that point. But the other 20% is, and people are going to argue with me, but I do think the other 20% is stuff like returned shamblers, returned pillars. I think DE, Middle Atlantis, is just a better nation than DE, Early Age Chaco, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. Not all nations need to be equal. They're different eras, etc., etc. That's perfectly fine. But I do think that looking at a lot of the different nations that are in DE and what their abilities are, I have the opinion that Chaco has been, it's been nerfed in the past because it was better. But 2, I think with what the nation is trying to do, it does not have the tools to be a sacred nation. It feels like you're supposed to really rely on the Wuyas and Monketinas, and you can, to a point, right? But Wuyas and Monketinas won't win you big battles like this, right? You have to have troops. And when it comes down to that, people generally turn, obviously, we have decent mages, so that'll happen, right? Though we have some issues with the mages. But when it comes to things like big sacreds or stuff like that, we do not have ways to compete with a lot of DE nations when it comes to that. We just don't. We don't have the ability to, as Chaco, the nation, does not have the ability to produce their good sacreds in a way that a lot of other DE nations do. So I think we're kind of destined to lose. One, this build versus this MA Atlantis player and the situation that we were in, we were always going to lose because we were always super far behind. I really do think doing Drain 3 was a death sentence on my ability to scale in this game, right? It was so hard to get anything going in the beginning. We tried out the attack +4 fire part of the Bless, and I think that just sank it for us. In fact, I'm starting out doing some single-player stuff just to mess around because I had fun with Chaco and I want to play some more of them. And I'm basically just doing the same thing as we did previously, but without the fire portion, and it's significantly improved. So, anyways, this was a fun fight, but we didn't really stand a chance. If we didn't have to deal with Wailing Winds, and so again, before this even comes up, we can see our morale is 12, on our Chacoan Star Priest, 11 on our Sorceresses. Take something like a Monkatsina. Oh no, that's a Warrior Twin. That's not even. Take something like a Monkatsina, it's 14, right? Take something like a Wuya is significantly higher. That's because he has a bonus. Wrong Wuya. It's sitting at 17, right? Base 16. So we actually have pretty shitty morale. Like if you think our here's a Ghost King. Obviously it's undead, so it's got undead. We won't look at that. Coral Queen, right? Base of 14, huh? That's a very high experience bonus. Maybe we have good morale and we just suck. I don't know. I feel like that's not quite the case. He's got so many undead units. It's hard to find something. Ah, here we go. The Kings of the Deep, right? Actually, they've got worse morale than I do. 13. Interesting. Does he actually get affected by... So the Wailing Winds doesn't affect your side. Right? No. But the Blood Rain does. Yeah. Blood Rain just drops his... -4. Yeah, I guess. Okay. So, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like with a core of things like Chacoan Star Priest with a base morale of 11, we have a really difficult time dealing with things like Wailing Winds and Blood Rain. This is something that I've gained a fair amount of experience due to the repeated fights that I've had to do with in the hyper late game of the Tetragrammaton game. Trying to figure out like how do you survive against morale breaking spells. And even in situations where we would basically have to like Dragon Helmet and Ring of the Warrior every Chacoan Star Priest just to have a chance at a significant amount of morale. But even then, if you think about it, right? Ring of the Warrior boosts 2. These would be sitting at... This guy would be sitting at 15, right? So this is +7. This guy would be sitting at 16. Sorceress would be sitting at 14, right? It's still not... That's still not, like, astronomically great. That's not, oh, I'm going to stick around forever. So Chaco has... Absolutely, and I think, you know, anyone who's not a Death Nation or a Blood Nation or a Demon Nation has this potential problem. Morale spells hurt really bad, really bad. So even in that situation, ignoring Wailing Winds, ignoring Blood Rain, if we didn't have to deal with that, we absolutely would have gotten outgunned. I think we would have been able to potentially last a little bit longer. Let me... Did we ever even get to put up our... I was pretty sure we were putting up Storm. Yeah, we had Natural Storm up. So, Natural Storm goes up, but it goes down pretty quick. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so it doesn't go down immediately, but it does go down after like the first earthquake. So, if we had been able to keep Natural Storm up, right, and our lines had crashed, we absolutely still would have lost, but we might have been able to get more stuff going in with our Mage Core. But as soon as the storm drops, we basically just get enveloped, right, by mass flight. So that's really unfortunate that that we lost the Natural Storm there. That's kind of probably like the other trigger that really ends this for us quickly. We would lose regardless, I'm positive, but if we had been able to keep up the Natural Storm and we'd been able to keep going for a little while, maybe we would have done like 150 kills or something like that rather than just the 61. So anyways, we get slapped here. All good. fun. Let's move over to Foray Flagra and watch that battle. Okay, so we have a significantly larger force going on here, but we have a pretty significant force arrayed against us. So let's take a quick look. We already went through all of the stuff that we're doing as far as like scripting goes in the previous video, but just a cursory scenario. We have a very long line of Chacoan armored warriors, filled in with some heavy infantry. We have a little front line of Katsinas out front. We've got a very big chunk of Katsinas in the center, along with some Great Bears. The intent here, we've got a bunch of flanking units. We've got some Chacoan archers. We've got some ant warriors. We've got some kidnids. The intent here is, hopefully, right, with our army of lead and various other buffs, our Chacoan armored warriors aren't great, right? But the hope is that they will be able to move forward and hold their lines against the Foray Flagrant troops, while this pretty big center of Katsina warriors and bears, but really the Katsina warriors, is able to push forward. And what we should see is a big bell happening, where eventually there won't be much of a center left, and they'll collapse onto the two wings, or they'll just push forward. That's the hope anyways. Don't know that that's going to work, and we've got a lot of opposition up against us. We've got the Cyclops Ectromos, which are very big boys, pretty high base protection. There's a whole bunch of Flagrant pikemen, which are going to say a big fuck you to our whole repel shtick. So that's unfortunate. There's a fair amount of these halberdiers, and they'll do pretty okay against us, but they have low HP. Good protection, etc., etc. There's the Mouflon Guard, which are pretty dope cavalry. I actually really like these cavalry. They've really good protection, pretty good defense, a bunch of good attacks. They're gonna take buffs really, really well. So depending on what buffs Flagra brings to the battlefield here, it could go really, really south for me really, really quickly. And there's a bunch of, I say a bunch of, but there's a fair amount of crossbowmen mixed in here. And then he has a crap ton of a fair amount of mind blasters, which is a kind of like dangerous mix into this whole thing, as well as a bunch of auto communion slaves and specialized, holy shit, maguses and things like that. So really, really interested in seeing how this goes. We're gonna watch from kind of like a high scale, just initially. See how it goes. These guys are not on hold like they probably should be. We've got some air guys, some sylphs just messing with us. Light of the Northern Star on his side. We've got a Ravenous Swarm. Ravenous Swarm would have been really, really good in the... If I'd had more Wuyas, right? If I just had a more comparable army to the Atlantean one, Ravenous Swarm would have done really, really good against them. So Ravenous Swarm goes up, Howl goes up. His army is charging forward. We have the big line of Ectromos, and we meet. And honestly, I don't know if this is really good for us or really bad for us, but his center is very slow to push forward. All of these guys are on hold and attack. So he kind of does what we want for us by creating this little bell pocket. And we want that because the idea is that we want that because we believe that we have stronger troops with our Katsina warriors coming into the center, and so they're going to be able to push through and either go straight for his back or, you know, get dragged into the flanks of these other units. A bunch of other things that come up. Natural Rain is up. Natural Storm is up on our side. We've got a Relief on our side. We've got a Light of the Northern Star on our side. Rain of Stones. We can see the little stones falling all over the place from his side, but, you know, gonna do just as much work for us. And then we have a Foul Vapors, and if we take a quick kind of look around, okay, so he's got 10 poison resist on this Flagrant crossbow, no poison resist on this crossbow, no poison resist on this crossbow, no poison resist here, No poison resist here. No poison resist here. So he has some people who I think have done some poison warding, but he does not have a mass poison resist, and that's a big deal. He did animal control, so we can see a bunch of our bears got snagged over here. So now we gotta fight fucking superpowered bears, which is a pain in the ass. But, you know, Foul Vapors, I'm hoping, is probably going to do a pretty big number on his unprotected troops. And now we can see his units are massing forward. And he, I think, has more infantry in this fight than we do. So, that's scary. That is quite scary. Especially now that we're having to deal with the mind-controlled bears on our side. So, our center seems to be holding. A bunch of different shit just goes everywhere. Very large amount of Katsina warriors in here. And we can see the Chacoan armored warriors seem to be holding pretty admirably against the Zealous Ekdromos, right? They're not giving ground, and it's probably, you know, primarily because there's 3 per freaking square, so his attack density is pretty abysmal, right? So he's probably killing my guys, but we have plenty to step into the square and take the next hit, you know? Is what it is. We're not pushing through like we were hoping that we were gonna, so that's unfortunate. And it looks like he has quite a bit more ranged than we do. Got some gifts from heaven coming down. That's not gonna be good for us. We have mostly killed the bears, so if we can finish off these last few bears, maybe we will be able to do some stuff. We've got some air elementals that we are summoning in, but they seem distracted by the 2 bears. So now we're just unloading into our own people. We really need to get these bears out of here, because these bears are screwing us over. But our line is holding, continuing to hold, and we can see there's actually a fair amount of routing going on back here. In point of fact, we'll watch this a little more carefully on the next time around. In point of fact, Foul Vapors has done a massive number on his back line. He is not nearly protected against it, and we can see now now that the back line is no longer distracted, we're no longer having to fight our own bears. We've pushed forward, and we're trying to actually win. And instead of what we had intended of winning in the center, it's actually the flanks. We just hold in the center, and the flanks are starting to win and surge forward. So that is pretty neat. At this point, it's mostly just cleanup, so we'll go ahead and speed up just a tad as our pretty well off core of infantry just continues to move forward and kill what all is left. You can see, if you had a careful eye over here, you could see just a little while ago, basically our whole communion went pop because this battle took too long. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Fortunately for us, we don't need this communion to live past this battle. So that's a victory for us, and it looks like a pretty commanding one. Let's take a look at our actual losses. So we lose 266 units. Pretty good mix all over the place of what we actually lost. Some archers, some armored warriors, infantry here or there. Mostly kept our Katsina warriors, which is cool. Kept most of our Kidnids, which is neat, I guess. Kind of whatever. Lost 33 of our 34 Chacoan Star Priests. They lasted for a really long time, but the battle just went a little long, and then they popped there at the end, which is unfortunate. Our sorceresses, you can see the communion masters or mistresses of this particular battle. They were able to really use the communion's abilities and deal a lot of fucking damage, so that's really good. Katsina warriors also did a lot of damage. I don't know if... I guess these Wuyas might actually account for the foul vapors. I'm not sure. So, we were up against 955 units. Actually outgunned us by over 200. And we won pretty handily. That's pretty big win. Honestly, if this was a real battle and I didn't lose 33 Star Priest, I would be very happy. I mean, I'd be happy with the result, period, because it's a pretty massive win. But if we didn't lose the Star Priest, I'd be like, this is a fucking stomp, right? Because losing the rest of this infantry, I mean, you're gonna lose infantry. That's fine, right? But losing the 33 Star Priests is unfortunate. If this army, right, had gone up against the Atlantean army, I actually would still expect to lose, even at this point. Like the 700 versus, I think the Atlantean army was 455-ish or something like that. I just think, again, the Atlantean army had us outgunned with research. They just had more battle magic than we did here. So I think they probably still would have won. Maybe things would have been okay. Honestly, if they'd employed the Wailing Winds and Blood Rain, this army would have routed like little bitches. So we definitely would have lost in that instant. But without that, we still, I think, would have lost. So, as Basilius did 680, or the Basiliuses did 680 kills. This is probably mostly things like Swarm. We did a lot of Swarm casting or Ravenous Swarm castings. A lot of things like Wolves from Howl and stuff like that. So this is a lot of miscellaneous death, probably, that isn't really our units, obviously. The Magistrate's probably the same thing. Starfathers seem to do a fair amount of work. None of his particular infantry really did anything crazy good. He has such a huge mix. And the reason he has such a huge mix is because these guys have different like promotion ranks, right? So a lot of these units are in the same line of units. They're just in different promotion statuses. So let's watch that again real quick. One of the things I want to watch is I want to see... I just want to watch on kind of quick speed how Foul Vapors works on this back line. Okay, Foul Vapors goes up. And we can see, if we take a look through, most of his units back here do not have any protection against Foul Vapors. So we can see little pockets of gas pop up, and as they do... Curse of Stones. As they do, we see little groups pop here or there. Little bits of poison damage all over the place. Little holes popping, forming. Okay, so it's not like Foul Vapors just horribly destroyed him, just like butchered him. But it definitely did work. If we did not have Foul Vapors in this battle, it looks like... I don't know that it would have gone differently, but it definitely probably would have been a bit of a different story. Because there are a lot of units back here that are basically dying off at this point because of Foul Vapors. I wonder how much work Ravenous Swarm actually did. Communion's still up. Communion's still up. How close are we? We're so close. That's so sad. Watch the end. We're actually very close to the end. And it starts just popping. So close. If this if this had, I don't know, ended 30 turns earlier, then it would have kept that whole communion. That's unfortunate. All right, let's watch one more time from more of a frontline point of view. I want to see kind of like how our magic, because it looks like we did a pretty good job of fighting here or there. Sylphs go up. Did we have Fog Warriors? Oh, we had Fog Warriors in this fight. We had Fog Warriors. We had Will of the Fates. Right, we had way more going on in this army. Maybe this army would have been able to stand up to the Atlantean one. I don't think so, honestly. Fuck is. Alright, so that was a big annoying problem. Because this actually took us a long time to kill these bears off. Bears were a big problem. Got a bunch of Soul Slays going out, Legions of Steel going out. Haul the Peaks. We have Summon Elementals, Empower Magic Beings, Ether Warp. What's Call the Peaks? I don't know what that is. We're gonna look up Call the Peaks. I'm not sure what that spell is. I've seen a lot of it though. Did this spike? Someone's casting something that's like hitting a whole bunch of people. Oh, cool. Down our front line. We've also, oh, I love, that's another thing, right? These Chaco and Armor Warriors, let's be honest, they suck. They are hot garbage at the beginning of the game. They're generally hot garbage throughout the middle of the game. It's just at the end of the game, because they have full armor slots, right? They take buffs decently well. They don't take buffs great, but they take buffs decently well. But behind them, you've got the Kidnids, who are basically just better versions of the same thing, stepping into any holes, right, made by the Chaco and Armor Warriors. So that's kind of funny. I do enjoy that. That's gotta be like this Call the Peaks thing, right? I'm seeing so much of that. We're gonna check that out. Check and see what that is. I feel like it's this thing, this like little multiple steam vents. Ooh, someone just like destroyed a chunk of people. Got some falling fires going on? I don't have that spell, do I? There's something. I don't know, man. Oh, it might be his side. He might be falling fires. Falling fires. We're on fire. Everyone's on fire. Actually, most of my people are on fire. You guys tired back here? They're very tired back here. Strength of Gaia. Oh wow, it's the carnivorous plants. That's funny. All right, that was a pretty fun fight. Let's take it. What was that? Call the Peaks. What's that? Maybe it's not an evocation? All the Peaks. It's a Thaumaturgy spell. Thaumaturgy 4. All the Peaks. Calls the power of the highest mountain peaks where the air is thin. A group of enemies will find themselves struggling to breathe and will gasp for air, becoming fatigued. If cast in a highland province, the lack of air may cause troops to act erratically for the rest of the battle. As a confusion check. So it's a pretty large AoE, or, you know. Well, that's interesting. Okay. I don't hate that. Cool. All right, sweet. Well, that is pretty much it. So, horribly destroyed by Atlantis. And I don't want to say horribly destroyed for a Phlegra, but did a good job. I feel like my target selection was correct. Rather than me picking fights with Atlantis, I decided to get the hell off of Gielinor. So, let's talk a little bit about the game. I had a really fun time with Bozmos, but there were a lot of problems with this game. I'm going to talk about the game itself for just a few minutes, and then I'm going to talk about Chaco as a nation. So, obviously the big problem was the lag problem. To the point to where the lag got so bad that a lot of people just quit the game. Or even after... It got so bad that we actually... The devs, I think the devs, I don't know if it was the devs or not, but I'm pretty sure it was the devs because the whole game got patched, right? Made a patch so that large games like this wouldn't lag, which I think is really, really interesting. One, I think that's cool. I think that's very responsive of the devs to do that. Fantastic. Good shit, right? But it was so soul draining on this game. Basically, this is turn 74. It was from pretty much turn 30 or 40 to this point. Not to this point. The lag patch came at like turn 60, 65, somewhere in there. I don't remember exactly when, but that really, really seemed to have killed the game. It was a really, really big issue. And then the second issue I think is just kind of inherent in a game like this, and that is that it's too big. There's too many people, and unless you just do a very good vetting process and you have a very good understanding and everyone involved really agrees, there's almost no way to get 70 plus people who are going to stick with something, especially something this long term, and stick with it the same dedication as everyone else. And that's not to say that you have to be hyper dedicated to a game like this. I'm not hyper dedicated to these types of games, right? But I try to always, do my turns, whether I do them well or not. I'm going to do my turns. I'm going to try to stick around. I'm going to try to fight to the end, etc., etc. And we had some great examples of that, some stellar examples, like Bogarus actually stuck it out until the very end, went down fighting, went down swinging. Same thing with Facio, right? So that's really cool. But then we had a fair amount of other people who just kind of bounced. Either they had bad starts, or things didn't go well, or there were disagreements, or there was a lot of like fighting in the chat, or maybe not fighting, just arguing in the chat, right, in the Discord channel over the game. And I think that also wore on a lot of the players. So in the end, we ended up, right, in the end, or as we approached the end, we were like, okay, we're going to end at turn 100 no matter what. But we didn't even make it to that because it was basically just like, all right, no, we're done. There were maybe 15, 20 people at the end that actually that were interested in continuing to play, and it just wasn't going to be it. Now, obviously, I only know a little bit about what's going on. I did get to, listen in on Discord chats and things like that. So I do know Lucid, for example, was in a very big position to win. And a lot of people at that point kind of threw in the towel because they were like, well, look, what's the point of going the next 25 turns if Lucid's already won at this point? And so that's fine, right? Like, that doesn't necessarily bother me. But the dealing with the lag for so long, and the kind of like the kind of toxicity that was happening a lot of times in the Discord chat really kind of, I think, set the tone for this game to not be super great. That being said, I had a blast. This was the first time I've ever played a game this big. I had a really fun time with it. I think we performed poorly, but we survived to the end, so it is what it is, right? I think the build that I came in with Chaco was a bad build. It was I describe it as an overly cautious build because I super invested in the early game and being able to survive the early game because I didn't want to die. I didn't want to play a big ass game like this and get knocked out in the first 20 turns. I didn't want to be that person, right? There's nothing wrong with that person. But in doing that, right, I succeeded in that goal, but it came at a very big cost. And the cost was basically having no ability to scale into the mid and late game well, right? Now, obviously, a lot of people will say, well, look, if you expand well enough, you get your scaling by being big. And we tried doing that. We were decently sized, but I made a lot of cautious diplomatic choices at the beginning of the game that I also think kind of screwed us over. And then we just kind of got screwed. Even when doing a fair amount of work for like Bogarus or for like Ind, we kind of got screwed on taking those. And I probably should have been more aggressive. I probably should have at the beginning just attacked Phasia, or maybe allied against Atlantis earlier on. But I definitely played a more cautious game. And while I'm not unhappy with where it led us, I do think it wasn't the choices to win, right? Obviously. So, and then the other thing is and I've talked about this at length here or there. And I've had people argue with me, and again, take my opinions with a grain of salt, right? I'm a casual player. I'm not an expert. Chaco seems really fun as a nation. Coming from being an player and really enjoying Earth nature nations, Chaco really fits that vibe, and it's fun. It's good. I like it. However, Chaco seems so heavily invested in things like its Wuyas and Monketsinas. Absolutely, right? And its investment in those things, if you do not take a good bless, I've found this through experimentation, through playing single player, through trying a couple of different things. It's just my opinion. If you do not take a good bless with them, they're not that great, right? They get a free Vine Shield, that's cool, but who gives a shit? You can make an actual Vine Shield for someone who is good, right? And that's not me saying that the Wuyas aren't good. They are good, right? They are good if you give them a good bless, right? They're not good just stand alone. So you have to make that sort of dedication for them. And because you have to make that sort of dedication for them, it really feels like they want to rely on their sacreds. They do not have good alternative troops, right? You go to something like the Ants or the Serpent Warriors, and they're interesting, but they're not super good. They're not gonna win you the mid to late game because you can just summon so many Ants and Serpent Warriors. No, absolutely not. You can't. In fact, you're restricted on doing most of those things. And that's the thing is it feels like I don't know if Chaco was just way strong in the past and people were like, okay, we got to nerf Chaco. That's kind of what I've heard is that the Wuyas and the Monketsinas and the Katsinas used to be even stronger than they are now, and so they got nerfed. That's cool. That's fine. I understand that. Then adjust something in compensation, right? Don't. From a balance perspective, it's typically a bad idea to nerf something without also raising something, because all you're doing is decreasing the power level. If you just decrease the power level of something, like take a champion in League or League of Legends, because this is something that most people are familiar with or something like that. If you just nerf, say, the damage of someone's Q, right? And you don't do anything else, typically what happens is that champion, unless they were just incredibly oppressive, that champion just stops seeing play. Period. Right? You have nerfed that champion with no compensation. So either they were super oppressive, in which case the nerf that you did is not going to be enough, so they're still going to be super oppressive, or they're just not going to see play anymore. And what you need to do in those types of situations is nerf something but buff something else. So in this particular situation with Chaco, it feels like the Wuyas and Monkatsinas, and again, I cannot stress this enough, they're amazing, they're great, especially with a good bless, right? But they don't end the game. You can't siege forts down with them. You can't win big battles with them. You have to have other things. And what do you get? You're not a death nation, right? So you don't get access to copious amounts of death or undead or things like that, right? You're not a blood nation. You're not going to get plenty of demons, etc., etc. You can shoehorn your way into those things, sure, like anyone else, but they're not going to be your go-to routes. Most other nations, if they're not a death nation or a blood nation, most other nations for a late game options, especially in DE and Dominions Enhanced, what do they have? They have some massable sacred unit that they can use as their big force for the late game. Take MA Atlantis, right? Or take Foray Flegra, right? Foray Flegra, for example, they have most of their units promote into sacred units, okay? But Chaco doesn't have anything like that. Chaco doesn't have anything efficient for that. And I think that's really the thing holding Chaco back. If I have plenty of gem income. If I had the ability back here in my capital to do, 3 Katsina warriors for 10 nature gems, right? That's not great, but okay, sure. I make 17 gems per month. That almost doubles my production of Katsina warriors. Okay, sure. If and we've talked about this, or I feel like I've talked about this at length. I might not have talked about this at length. If our ant warriors were sacreds, right? We could be going for Ant Warrior Swarm. We can only cast this in our capital, but 15 plus sacreds for 15 gems is crazy good efficiency, right? But they don't have anything for that. I don't think they have good enough answers. I don't think if we take a look at, I don't know if we have any that survived. Yeah, these Ant Warriors, right? They're even at 15 for 15, a 1-to-1 ratio. These guys aren't into the game units, right? They have natural protection, which means they actually don't take buffs very well. You want things that have armor, right? They have no armor, so that's a problem. They don't have crazy high HP. They have okay HP. They don't have crazy good stats. They have okay stats, right? It's Chaco doesn't have a thing to rely on or work towards in the late game. They have really cool super combatants that take a bless very well, and they've got a bunch of interesting summon options, but they're all like singular summon options. So the plan is for you to be able to kind of like, I guess, super combatant armies down, but that's not going to work against something like this. It's just not, right? Not with something like a Wuya, right? With something like an Angel or a Gregory or something like that, maybe, sure, absolutely, that's fair. But not a Wuya. They're good, but to my understanding, they're not as good as they once were. Not as good as they were. Yeah, anyways, so that's just kind of my opinion. I had a blast with the game. Would do again. Was a fun time. But that's it for now. That is Bozmos2. That is our adventure with Chaco. Congratulations to Lucid. Basically, Lucid's been declared honorary winner because, again, apparently Lucid was basically gonna win regardless. So Thank you to my opponents. Thank you to Bogarus and Ind. Thank you to Facia for being a good ally throughout the game. Thank you for my other Gielinor neighbors for not murking the shit out of me when they could on multiple occasions. Thanks to Boz for fighting me for a little while with Kangobia, and thanks to Boz's sub for continuing to fight me with Kangobia. Thanks to Niflheim and Ore Flegra for fighting me. Thanks for freaking... Where you at? Whoever the hell's over here. Thanks to Erythia for being a good trade partner. I had a blast. It was fun. So, yeah. We are in the works for new Dominion stuff. I've got a couple of different projects that I'm working on. It might be a while for some of them, before some of them come to fruition. So in the meantime, I think probably what I'm going to do is do more single-player stuff. So, especially as we head into the holidays, because right now doesn't feel like a great time to get into brand new games. But we'll see. I'm going to keep my eye out for stuff. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.